Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies for absence from Councillors Moody and Fenning.
Item 2, declarations of interest to receive disclosures of unregistered or other interests from councillors on matters to be considered at the meeting. So if you have an interest, please declare it now or as soon as you become aware of it during the meeting. Councillor Smith, Councillor Parker.
Madam Mayor, personal non-prejudicial interest in item 255 of budget and policy, being a trustee of that organisation.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Same point.
Thank you. Item 3, which is the minutes of the council meeting, to confirm the minutes of the special meeting of Tavistock Town Council held on Tuesday the 19th of November. First of all, do you agree that these are a true record of the meeting?
Agreed.
Yeah. So can I have a proposer that they... Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. Those in favour, please show.
It's carried.
Thank you. Any matters arising from those minutes? No. Thank you. Item 4, public representations and questions. We have received none. So we move on to items requiring a decision. 5, general finance, a schedule of payments to consider and endorse the monthly accounts which are listed on the Town Council website. Anybody have any questions?
No. I haven't received any.
No. Okay, so is it your wish that we should pass those schedule of payments?
Yes.
Thank you. B, budget monitoring report, to consider and endorse the phased budget monitoring report as at the 31st of October. Any questions on those? No. Over halfway through the financial year, so we need to keep an eye on what's going on with that. Okay, then move on then to item 6, Budget and Policy Committee, to consider the minutes of the meeting of the Budget and Policy Committee held on Tuesday the 19th of November. Councillor Hutton, please, Deputy Mayor.
Right, I hope you've all read these. There's a lot of reading here, but I need to, after the standing orders, say we should read all the recommendations, so I will do that, all right? So I rise to present the minutes of the meeting of the Tuesday the 19th November, 240 apologies, 241 confirmation of minutes, 242 declarations of interest. Now the items for recommendation. 243. This is budget preparation and precept setting 2020-21. Recommended that the Council endorse 1. The submitted draft Council budget 2020-21, subject to officers being tasked with undertaking further due diligence in relation to areas of uncertainty / potential calls on reserves to identify the options available to the Council. 2. Reinstatement of an earmarked localism reserve with a funding of £20,000 to provide support to a new locality-based council initiatives. 3. Any surpluses available as at year-end and not otherwise identified be carried forward into the rolling capital programme. 4. The schedule of fees and charges for council services to apply in 2020-21. 5. The council fixed asset register.
Thank you. We have a recommendation. Anybody have any questions to that? Councillor Parker, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In respect of page 2, item C, I've said to this council several times about the increasing urgency. My question is, what resources can be brought forward to progress the neighbourhood plan? The reason I'm saying this evening is that so far we have acted in the belief that the question of settlement boundaries would be dealt with by West Devon Council through a development plan document. That's what the inspector that the local plan examination set. What the West Devon Borough Council is saying is that they intend that only neighbourhood plans will identify planning document, which is currently out for consultation, it's very clear that where there is no settlement boundary, officers of the West Country Council will use their own judgment to decide whether something is within, near to, or outside the settlement. I think those of us who sat on the committee recently have seen some of the worst of that exercise of judgment. I believe for all the reasons that we've discussed before that the neighbourhood plan is urgent, but it has become, I think, increasingly urgent with the situation of the local plan and the absence of identification of settlement boundaries. In other words, there's now 7 or 8 now 9 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Did you wish to comment on that?
Just one observation. We did say to members that we would be bringing a report back to Council in order to establish whether or not it wished to proceed with the neighbourhood development plan. I've just spoken to my colleague, the Assistant of the Town Clerk, and that is scheduled for your December meeting of the DMNL. So that will be something which will come forward to Council in due course in the early part of the new year.
I'm grateful, thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we've got a recommendation, we've had a question. Any other questions? Right, can I put it to the vote then, please? Those in favour, please show. Thank you, that's carried. Thank you.
244 audit recommended that 1 VAT partial exemption calculation, the accountants to the council recompute the amount repayable, and 2 the rolling capital fund. The suggestions of the auditor be submitted to the accountant to the council with a view to securing a more simple and holistic representation of the availability of resources.
Thank you. So we've got a recommendation.
Reserves.
Yeah.
Them as well.
So it's the representation of the availability of reserves. So we've got a recommendation which has been put forward. Any questions? I'll second it. So those in favour, please show.
It's carried.
Carried. Thank you.
245 Guildhall Gateway Centre collaborative working arrangements recommended A, the appointment of Councillor H. Smith, the Guildhall lead member, and Paul Ward, Townscape Heritage lead member, to be confirmed, together with the appointment of one other member. Now, Councillor Parker, G. Parker, has already indicated he wished his name to go forward. But is there anybody in this council meeting who also would like to be considered for this role? So do I take it then that Councillor G. Parker still wishes to be nominated? So, in which case they are the recommendations then, that Councillors Smith, Ward are confirmed with Councillor G. Parker.
Right, thank you for that. So we've got a recommendation. Any questions? Right, those in favour, please show. Carried.
246 Town Hall lift. Recommended that Tavistock Town Council A, seek tenders for the replacement of the Town Hall lift, and B, agree to make available up to £45,000 from the emergency maintenance reserve budget.
Thank you. We have a recommendation. Any questions? Councillor Mrs Ewing.
I'd just like to question that they reference the note about the operation of the town hall heating system. That if it's still going, because there's really cold weather, you know, and people hiring, and you know, I really feel that that does need to be kept clearly on the radar. It was on the radar for a couple of years, and we have money set aside, and you know, we've got to start putting some money aside again. It's going to be very expensive. We can't keep relying on the fact we have to have one boiler manually turned off by said expert to have the other boiler going, that we can't run 2 boilers at the same time. So I really would like it kept on the hit list of the General Manager and of this Council, please.
Thank you. General Manager, did you wish to comment at all?
Just to say that we can commission in the region about £10,000 worth of work to get both boilers up and running and do necessary modifications to make it more efficient.
And is that going to happen? You said we could.
Yes.
Oh, can Can we put that in the minutes, please? Councillor Mr. Ching.
Can I also ask, though, that how long is that going to keep those boilers going for? Because they are very old boilers. The Mayor and I have been here a long time, and I don't know of any boilers being put in there since we've been around.
No.
These days, boilers only last, 15, 20 years. So how old are these boilers? And will this £10,000 worth of work, is it going to be the same as the lift, that actually it could be more cost effective to bite the bullet and just pay for new ones, and look at it that way, please?
Thank you. I know Councillor Parker wants to speak, but I'd like the Town Clerk to come in first, please.
I think just to clarify the situation, members will be aware that we anticipate bringing you the budget arrangement or the proposed final draft budget at your next meeting of Budget and Policy, and then to the next meeting of Council. That will be the opportunity whereby you can prioritise the available resources and you can set the precept accordingly in order to be able to deliver on the priorities that you identify as part of that process. So clearly something like the heating system will form part of the prioritisation process that you will undertake at that time, and you can look at that together with the other things that we have outstanding and the other issues that there may be to bring into the pot.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just two short points, if I may. Number one is, those of you who weren't there at the Britain in Bloom presentations wouldn't have experienced the fact that three people in wheelchairs turned up. It took half an hour each to get two of them into the presentation. The third one, which was a young lady who was receiving the presentation, wasn't able to get in at all because the Stanner lift wasn't capable of lifting her wheelchair. So we reached the point, I think, where this it couldn't be more urgent. We were in breach of so much legislation at that point. But having talked to Wayne and his team, I just want to say well done for keeping that lift going as long as you have done. And thank you on behalf of all of those at the Bloom presentation for managing to get 2 out of 3 in. That was a sterling effort.
Yes, thank you. So any other questions on this? Right, we've got a recommendation. Those in favour, please show. Carried. Thank you.
247, requests for support. A, Rural Market Town Group. Recommended that Tavistock Town Council subscribe to the Rural Market Towns Group for a period of 1 year and review the benefits of membership at that time.
Right, thank you. Any questions? Right, we've got a recommendation. Those in favour, please show.
Carried.
Yeah, thank you.
And B is a request for a letter of support from a Greenlands group. But I'm going to ask the Town Clerk just to give us an update on this before we do the recommendation.
Yep. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to say that we have received correspondence from the applicant in relation to this. This is something which is not now proceeding at this time. So I think if you're happy to place this in abeyance pending further developments, that will provide the opportunity for a revised proposal to come forward if and when appropriate.
Yes, thank you.
So it's not appropriate to do that recommendation at the present time. 248, progress report on the Guildhall Gateway. 249, Sustainability and Environment Working Group. A recommendation that the minutes of the meeting of the Sustainability and Environmental Working Group held at the Council Chamber on Wednesday the 16th of October 19 be received and the recommendations contained therein endorsed.
Thank you. Any questions on that recommendation? Right, those in favour, please show. Thank you.
251, Goose Fair Park and Ride Income and Expenditure 2019. At this stage, Madam Mayor, I need to declare an interest because I, of course, am a lion.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to read the recommendation or is it better that you do so?
Well, I probably need to declare an interest as well, because my brother's a lion.
It's not a prejudicial interest,
No.
I think. So.
So the recommendation then is, and Councillor Smith, of course, is also a lion.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't vote because I declared an interest in that meeting.
Yeah.
Is there anybody left who can vote?
Just me and you.
Right. The recommendation that Tavistock Town Council recognise the contribution made by the Tavistock and Tamar Lions clubs by way of grant as in previous years, thereby making an award of £1,000 per Lions club.
Thank you. So we've got a recommendation. Those in favour, please show, apart from those who can't vote. Thank you. Carried.
And then there's 252 public bodies, and then there are some more confidential in the second part too.
Right, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Now move on to item 7, which is Development Management and Licensing Committee, to receive and consider the minutes of the meeting of the Management and Licensing Committee held on the 5th of November. Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to present the minutes of the DMNL of the 5th of November. 221, apologies for absence. 222, confirmation of minutes. 223, declarations of interest. 224, Dartmoor National Park Authority. 225, town planning issues. From that arises a recommendation, and it relates to the experimental parking arrangements on Plymouth Road adjacent Grenville Drive. Our understanding is that this is a temporary experimental period, and there will be an opportunity in due course to feed back to the Highways Authority. It is therefore recommended that all Tavistock Town Council members, being aware of the experimental order, consider the impacts of this order over a 4-month period. The matter would then be brought back to the Development, Management and Licensing Committee meeting on Tuesday the 17th of March 2020 for a recommendation to be made to the Council meeting scheduled for Tuesday the 14th of April.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Ewing.
Can I just ask a question? First of all, I thought it was fair. 18 months. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm sure the County Council has put that in one of their previous reports. Yeah. I would like to say, because as most of you know, I go along that stretch up to 8 times a day. And finally, last weekend was the first time anybody dared park along it. And it's really interesting. On Sunday night when I walked down, it's about 9 o'clock, all the cars in that stretch had gone. So they were moved for the 8 o'clock on Monday morning. So far, but it's only the first weekend they've done it. The signs have been up for weeks, but nobody's been like the first car. So far, I'd say it's working really well.
Thank you. So we've got a recommendation. Thank you for the question. Any other comments, Councillor?
Can we just clarify that 4 and 18 months, please? I was just going to say exactly the same thing. Can we clarify the time period, please?
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Ward.
I think this must relate to a document that we received from the Highways Authority. We can go back and check it, obviously.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
The Act, Road Traffic Act that it's up on, does actually say 18 months as well. For the sign
so
that's
it
been put
sounds
up.
like there might be
Yeah.
some... We just need to check up and see what's what there, please, if we can. So we've got a recommendation. We're going to vote in favour of that, given the fact that timing is questionable.
I think we could vote on the principle.
On the principle, yeah. Thank you. So those in favour, please show.
That's carried.
Thank you. Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 226, general correspondence. 227, urgent business brought forward at the discretion of the Chairman. Just to mention to members that we had some difficulties, mainly communication difficulties, with the Borough Council, and as a result of that, I, accompanied by the Vice Chairman and one other member and the Assistant to the Town Clerk, met up with representatives of West Devon Borough Council to discuss them, and I believe that the issues have been resolved as best as one might hope.
Thank you. Well done.
228, planning decisions and applications. A, planning decisions by West Devon Borough Council, and B, new planning applications to West Devon Borough Council. A recommendation follows. Recommended that the views of the Town Council as listed in Appendix B be passed to the local planning authority for consideration.
Thank you. So we have a recommendation. Those in favour, please show. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And now the minutes of the 26th of November, please, Councillor Ward.
So minutes of the meeting of the 26th of November. 258 apologies for absence. 259 confirmation of minutes. 260 declarations of interest. 261 Dartmoor National Park Authority. 262 town planning issues. It has been mentioned already that a supplementary planning document and an accompanying statement of community involvement has been released for consultation by the local planning authority. Now, the supplementary planning document is a chunky beast of nearly 400 pages, and in the timescale available, it was impossible for the DMNL to do it justice prior to this meeting of full council. Therefore, a recommendation follows that in view of the short timescale to respond to that consultation, Tavistock Town Council grant delegated authority to the Development, Management and Licensing Committee to respond to the supplementary planning document and statement of community involvement without reference back to Council. This matter would be brought back to the DMNL meeting scheduled for Tuesday the 17th of December. Noted that members of the DMNL undertook to provide feedback, having reviewed the chapters of the document allocated to them at this meeting. The feedback to be emailed back no later than Friday the 13th of December. What we have done is we have carved up this document into its constituent chapters and allocated a chapter to a member of the DMNL to look at and go through and see whether there are any omissions or commissions that relate to the parish of Tavistock.
Thank you. So we have a recommendation. There's quite a lot of work going to happen there, but it'll be given a thorough airing, I think. So I think that's the way to go forward. Any questions? Right. Those in favour, please show.
Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 263 General Correspondence. 264 Urgent Business brought forward at the discretion of the Chairman. 265 Planning Decisions by West Devon Borough Council. And 265B New Planning Applications to West Devon Borough Council, from which follows the recommendation. Recommended that the views of the Town Council as listed in Appendix B be passed to the local planning authority for consideration.
Thank you. Those in favour, please show. Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Ewings.
May I ask a question with regard to the Churchill development, please? Have members of the D&M committee looked at the trees that have been planted that were supposed to be semi-mature specimens that look like saplings almost? Is that an issue that we should take forward and mention to West Devon?
On a personal note, I'm always asking for semi-mature trees to be replaced rather than saplings. So
Yeah, they're really small trees.
I haven't looked at them, Andy. No. Councillor Ward.
Madam Mayor, might I suggest that we discuss that at the next meeting of DMNL?
Yeah, please. Thank you. Thank you. Probably come under town issues, couldn't it? Thank you. Right. Thank you very much, Councillor Parker.
Madam Mayor, rather than have it, as well as having a discussion at the DMNL, could we ask the West Devon Tree Officer for his views on it so that we have a discussion, not in a vacuum, but with information?
Yes, that would be a very... can we do that, please, Town Clerk? Thank you. Item 8, grant applications, allocation. To consider the report enclosed of the Assistant to the Town Clerk following the assessment of the grant applications, to consider whether to vary the scheme as proposed by the panel and to determine the award of grants by the Council. Councillor Mrs Ewing.
Sorry, I had on my agenda that I should have declared an interest for the new Tavistock Youth Cafe as the chairman of the organisation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, can you stand next time, please, Councillor Mrs Crawford? Right, Councillor Deputy Mayor, you... Councillor...
Sorry, Madam Mayor, we are declaring interest, and we already declared the interest when we were doing the grant applications, but should I declare again in this instance? Yes. Okay, so I declared an interest in West Devon Arts Workshop and also Tavistock Community Gardening because I work directly with them as a trustee of the Tavistock Scrap Store.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest before we move on with this? No. Okay. Councillor, Deputy Mayor, please.
Right, are you all ready for a lot of reading? These are recommendations. I hope you've all read the report, but it's recommended that Tavistock Town Council, A, for awards made in 2019, change the agreed and advertised process as set out in the above table for the award of council grants as follows, and instead agree 1. That the highest scoring organisation should receive 100% of the grants applied for. 2. That the remaining organisations should receive grant funding on a pro rata basis based on the actual percentage score achieved, rounded up to the next pound. B. In the event that the above change is agreed, that's A, based on the above, Tavistock Town Council provide financial support to the organisations as listed below with the amounts indicated. Now, do we need to do the first part first?
Yes.
Shall we just discuss the first part, okay?
Right, so we're doing A
We're doing
first.
A.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Smith, please.
Well, in general, I'm not happy with this. I don't know about the other members of this particular panel, but I spent half a day making sure that I was well aware of the paperwork which we'd sent regarding the advice we've been given about calculating the value or merit of each particular application. I spent a whole day rating the applications, and that's all based on the rules as were laid down when we entered into that process, which was also the rules that were laid down to the applicants were aware of the rules. Unfortunately, it would appear that there seems to be some dissatisfaction with those rules and methods, and we are proposing not to grant the awards in line with those rules. We are actually proposing a change after people have made their applications and gone through the process. That, to me, is at best untruthful on behalf of the council. Surely, it is mentioned later that we ought to set the rules earlier before people apply, but we'd have to get on with that even if we did it for the next time, because I'm aware of 2 organisations which are already pushing to get application forms for the next round. And so I don't feel, well, I definitely can't agree with changing the method of allocation of grants halfway through a process when members have spent a long time judging those applications against a set of criteria. And I just find that that is unsatisfactory, and we should, in my view, award the grants in line with the scoring method which this council agreed in 2018.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Parker.
Madam Mayor, I'm afraid I must disagree with my colleague, Councillor Harry Smith, on the grounds that whilst there were, and I wasn't part of the previous grants panel, whilst there were 3 rules, they couldn't be interpreted as rules. Maybe the first one was a rule, but numbers 2 and 3 were subject to incredible subjectivity, i.e. councillors could assess according to their interpretation rather than as an explicit rule, unlike the first one, which was specifically about previous applications and previous success in applications. So, and I think it was that subjectivity that led to a result which couldn't be sustained by the grants panel. And it was felt that after a lot of discussion concerning that difference of opinion, and that we shouldn't attempt to try and iron out each other's different approaches, because we all came from different standpoints. And the importance was that we all had an independent view. Therefore, in order to sustain an actual grant-giving process, rather than scrap it all together, we needed to come up with a methodology. And this was the methodology that was agreed was the best fit given the circumstances. Not ideal and not probably what was anticipated, but the best fit given the circumstances.
Thank you. Town Clerk, please.
I can only sort of offer the view which, had I been at the meeting, I would have offered. I mean, I think natural justice dictates that if you provide people with a set of rules and you afford them then the opportunity to apply for a benefit, that you should either subscribe to those rules, or if you wish to change them after the point at which the application has been made, then you stop the process, you re-advertise, and you afford both them and other applicants the opportunity to reapply. And the reason for that is because clearly there might be applicants who under the old set of rules didn't apply, but would under the proposed new set of rules. Equally, because the way in which the new set of rules work, there is the opportunity whereby you might apply for different amounts, because it does afford you the opportunity to effectively, in inverted commas, game the process, because you're going to get more money for putting in a larger application. So someone might have put in a smaller, more focused application first time round, thinking, I really want to get my £500 and I'll put in a really good application for that. Well, actually, under this scheme, you might say, well, blimey, I'll put in for £5,000 because the way in which it works is going to favour me. I'm particularly concerned, I think, as an officer, and I appreciate we're not there yet, but on page 4, where it then says on item 3, that based on looking ahead for the future, that based on the number, value and quality of applications received each year, the scoring mechanism can be revisited to take this into account, with recommendations then being made to Council for a decision on any changes. I think what I would say is, whatever you do this year, I would plead with you, please do not put in place a process which enables this to happen year on year, whereby people do not have certainty of what the rules of the game are when they come to actually make application for grants. Please can we for future have certainty, whatever decision you may decide to make in relation to this year. Otherwise, I think we open ourselves up to challenge, we open ourselves up to behaving in an unreasonable way, and we do open ourselves up to the potential challenge that we are, and I'm not suggesting we are here, but if we change it year on year, that we are changing the rules in order to benefit applications of a certain type who don't happen to suit the process, but that we want to benefit. It's better to do away with your rules and go back to a process whereby you consider each application on its merits, if that's the approach that you wish to adopt. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson, please.
I was a member of that panel. I, like Councillor Smith and the other 8 members, spent a long time coming to a view about the scoring. It's worth reflecting of where we've come from. When I joined this council in the previous term, there was no model at all. It was entirely scored on the basis of subjectivity without any model. This model was introduced in the last term, and the councillor who developed it and suggested it, and the council that accepted it, did a lot of work on it. It is not a perfect model, and Councillor Parker has mentioned why it's not a perfect model, and I would second her comments. I think we did the best we could. A grant is a grant, it's a gift from the council. To applicants, to challenge that might seem to be looking a gift horse in the mouth, even though the process is, as the clerk has said, being changed halfway through. And I would imagine that we've probably got 2 options. We scrap this year's grant, we keep the money, and withhold on the basis that it is felt by the clerk or recommended by the clerk that this money is going to be given in a defective sort of way, or we move forward and accept that we may not have got it 100% right, but it's more than 50% right, in my view, and we should go ahead on the basis that these people will be recipients of a graduated amount of money that was ratioed to cope with the financial situation of the council, in that to give all of the money that was in the pot would have been imprudent. And I think we in this council, and Budget and Policy Committee in particular, have looked very carefully at the financial situation, and the Grants Committee made what might be called a sensible decision about ratioing the money to the grant applicants. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Mann.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to point out that the bit that was changed was not the scoring in any way. We didn't change the way we scored it, and that has been respected in this particular way. What changed was actually how we then awarded the grants, not the scoring. So the work that each individual member put in was not thrown away. I'd also like to point out that this scoring and how we award the grants is not public. As in, we don't publish that with the grants. It's not on the application form currently. It's not in the rules. It doesn't tell them how we're going to score their applications. And in fact, what it does tell them is that the council retains the right to determine the amount granted or to refuse to make a grant. So I believe that actually we do reserve the right as a council to change the rules, and we have done so very clearly to the grant applicants. And in this case, we had to make the determination that because of the restrictions of our budget and the austerity that we're trying to experience and we're trying to do for the town, that perhaps granting that money was not the way to do the award. But we respected every member's wishes. The order in which they're being awarded the amount of money still reflects the scoring system that we used that day. And so, frankly, I don't actually agree that we've sort of changed something after the fact for those applicants. We have changed something after the fact for the members who were doing the granting, because their expectation would have been set by the document that went through the scoring methods. But that document is not provided to grants unless they did a sort of freedom of information or you've published it somewhere else.
It's on the web.
I can't find it on the web.
Sorry, it'll be on the web, but it'll be on the web at the time when the policy was approved and went through the committee process.
Yeah, it's probably in our minutes, but it's not. If you go to the grant website and you're looking to see how you get a grant with Tavistock Town Council, it's not there. And so my point would be that it's not setting an expectation for the public. It was setting an expectation for the councillors involved with the process. And I think we were all disappointed that it worked out in a way that meant we weren't going to be able to just use it and move on, because it meant we spent a lot longer that night at that meeting discussing it. But we've tried to come up with the very best solution to still respect every member's individual efforts and respect that scoring as best as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Parker, then Councillor Harry Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've heard the town clerk advises that the procedure was imperfect, and I think from what I've heard this evening, that would be a common conclusion. But we've also heard Councillor Parker, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Mann say that it was the best fit solution. So I think that leads me to the second question. My question is the grant panel satisfied that the outcome is fair? Because that's really, I think, what this council should be concerned with. If the answer is yes, then I would have no hesitation in supporting this.
Councillors, did you want to reply to that one?
Yes.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Just as somebody who is reading this out, I think that actually sums it up. I fully appreciate where Councillor Smith is coming from, but a lot of us were at that committee meeting, and there generally was obvious problems appeared, and it was trying to get a fair solution that basically we felt as members of the committee, the vast majority of us felt was a fair way of dealing with the problem we had, accepting we had a problem that we need to address for the future, but we thought it was fundamentally fair, which was why we recommended it. So I would support, apart from Councillor Smith, everybody else would be in support, I think, of what we decided.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I would like to just say to Councillor Mann that I did not say, when I was talking, that I felt that they had disregarded the scoring. I believe you carried with the scores went into the assistant to the town clerk. She did the work that she had to do, and she reported that truthfully to the council, to the members. However, my problem is that the minutes where that system was agreed are a public document, and as far as I'm concerned would represent the council's view of the method, or the council's statement of the method it was going to use for this year's grant. The way that we're doing it is not in line with the public document, and as far as I'm concerned, it leaves this open to challenge as a council. Okay, if you want to change it for next year, but it's not right to place a document in the public arena explaining quite clearly, when you look at it, how the system works, how it's calculated. People don't have to know the score. They applied for it in line with a document which is in the public domain. And then we decide as a council to change it part way through. To me, that does not seem fair. The way the figures and the sums come out in this document, that might well be fair in the views or of those councillors who were present, but it's not fair in the realms of the scheme. The scheme's in public. We said how we were going to do it. Now we've decided we're not going to do it that way. To me, I cannot support that.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Mrs Ewing.
In light of what Councillor Williamson has said, I was just wondering if the committee had sort of thought about when the recipients are notified that they have been granted an award, that we say to them why it may be a lot lower than they anticipated, you know, with the rules and everything, and just say, you know, the council can't afford it. And do we need to make a decision very early on, i.e. now or the next meeting, as to whether next year we can actually afford any grants, but we put it out there really early that we can't afford to do grants in November 2020. I think, you know, we need to be honest with people and not suddenly say in September, when the assistant to the town clerk has already had people going, when's it going live, when's it going live, when's it going in the paper. I think we need to be really clear, because some organisations do almost rely, you know, and some of the bigger awards that we give are for community awards that I feel that we should be able to give to every year, because they are our local community. You know, the services that some of those organisations provide to the town are vital to the town. So I would just like to ask, A, if that letter's going to be sent, when it's sent, to say, you know, hardship, austerity at the town council, and B, are we going to make a decision as to whether we actually award grants in 2020? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, a statement and then a question. We're in this situation because the council last time tried to put in place an objective scoring system where none had existed before. Unfortunately, that objective scoring system isn't objective because it still requires a great deal of subjective judgment, and therefore it is imperfect, although at the moment that is the way it is. And certainly I think before the next round it needs to be revisited to see whether something better can be constructed. It's not an easy task. Those of us who have been in this sort of situation in other settings know how difficult it is to put an objective scoring system into place. But my questions are, Madam Mayor, if the allocation had been as originally set down, what would have been the consequences, i.e. what would have been the total grant awarded, and what was the budget this year for the grant?
Thank you. Town Clerk, please.
The budget's the budget's £25,000. We're not sure, but we think that had a full award been made, that would have come in at about £3,000 over the budget. But I think the only thing I would add to that is, because of the way in which the scheme itself was intended to operate, if you were oversubscribed, then effectively allocations at the bottom end would just drop out. So you would never go in over budget, you would always be within budget. It's just that those which were otherwise eligible would fall away because they didn't. So your bottom tier or your bottom two tiers would fall out by virtue of that when you actually came to do the scoring. So you wouldn't be in a position where as a council you overcommitted.
Thank you. Yeah.
Were only 15 applications received, or was there more than that? So actually, this year, every application has received some funding. In previous years, there's been quite a few that get diddly-what's-it. They haven't received a penny. So actually, there's two ways of looking at this, isn't there? That, everybody has been given a little slice of the pie that is available.
Sorry, I'm trying to add up how much we would have allocated. I'm struggling a bit here with that. Because we wouldn't have allocated all of it, would we? Because under the previous criteria, anybody who scored over 30 would have got 100%, 25 to 30 would have got 75%. 20 to 25 got 50%, and under 20 would have scored no grant, would have got no grant. So, did you know, Councillor Smith? No. Councillor Fay, please.
Okay, I've just done it. If we applied the old system, the 50%, 75% and the 100%, I think the total grant given would be about to the tune of about £22,500.
Okay, we've had quite a lot of discussion on this. Anybody else wish to have their say? There is a recommendation before us. Does anybody wish to make a different recommendation? No? Okay, so we've got a recommendation before us. We've had a debate on it. Those in favour, please show.
That's carried, but if I may, I'll just go 1, 2... Sorry, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is recommendation A, Roman 1 and Roman 2 at this stage. And that was 9. It depends whether or not you are declaring, having assessed yourself against the test for other interests, whether or not you feel that a reasonable person in possession of the facts would believe that you were likely to be prejudiced in favour of the organisation, which is 9 votes. It's still more than half of those.
Yeah, okay. Right, so that's passed then, okay. So we move on to B then, please.
So B, in the event that the above change is agreed, based on the above, Tavistock Town Council provides financial support to the organisations as listed below with the amounts as indicated. And I'm going to read out the names and the amount allocated, all right? Tavistock Street Pastors, £750. The new Tavistock Youth Cafe, £1,583. Led by Dreams CIC, £1,289. Citizens Advice, £1,987. Tavistock Library, Libraries Unlimited, £1,842. Debt Advice Tavistock Area, £223. Tavistock Community Gardening, £416. Tavistock Goosey Fair Cattle Market Open Day, £519. Junior Life Skills, £116. Tavistock Athletics Club Limited, £283. Dartmoor Velo, £531. Taviside Badminton, £199. Tavistock Rugby Club, £860. Drake Judo Club, £331. West Devon Art Workshops, £138. That brings a total of £10,875, which is the council grants. C, for future years. 1. That the grants panel be appointed each year at the annual meeting of council when all of the members of committees, subcommittees and consultative groups are appointed. This would allow the members of the panel to meet before the grant application period to review and understand the scoring mechanism to ensure consistency prior to the grant application deadline. 2. That the grant policy be amended to state that no one organisation can apply for a grant of more than 20% of the overall grants budget. And 3. That based on the number, value, quality of applications received each year, that the scoring mechanism can be revisited to take this into account, with recommendations then being made to council for a decision on any changes.
Thank you. Anybody wish to pass a comment on that? Councillor Mrs Ewing.
Yes. On the section Roman 2, would the organisations know what the pot was to start, so they don't all apply for more than 20% and then get disappointed? If they clearly know how much our pot is, and i.e. the maximum you can apply for is X, you know, that does stop people applying for almost double what they want and then getting really disappointed when they don't get very much. So I think that's fair. Pardon? Yeah. And would that also be, when we're stating what that is, as to whether we are actually, when you have the meeting, whether the council can actually afford to allocate grants? Should that be inserted or added into that section of 2, please?
It seems to be a good plan. Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Might I suggest, Madam Mayor, that we separate B and C and take them separately, because it may well be that members feel that they can support one but not the other.
Okay, thank you. Right, we'll take item B, which are the list of the amounts allocated. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, I've put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's carried.
Okay, thank you. And then C. Those in favour, please. Sorry, yeah. Town Clerk. Sorry.
I think really just to reiterate, in relation to item Roman numerals 3 on C, a plea to members, can you please make it clear either that if you are going to change the scoring mechanism, that will either be A, before the advertisement process, or B, after you have awarded grants in that year on the basis of what was advertised, in order that it applies to the next year, but not midstream. I really think that having a process which gives you the flexibility to change the rules does open the council to the charge that it is effectively, if you like, gaming the system in order to have a set of rules on the one hand and then favour applications that it may wish in a particular year on the other hand. Just one or other of those caveats would enable us to be able to have a much more robust approach.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Parker, then Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In fact, it's a point very similar to the Town Clerk. I have no problem with Little Roman 1, but Little Roman 2 seems to be imposing answers on the grants panel before we've given them a chance to think about the questions. My own view would be not to support 2 and 3, but to substitute that the panel be requested to review the grant allocation process and report to council prior to the next allocation round, which I think covers the Town Clerk's point that there is certainty before we go into the round. But now we've got a panel that's had some experience of the problems and the wrinkles of the current process. They clearly are the best people, it seems to me, to put it right.
Thank you. Do you think that would work, Carl? Yeah. So that's an amendment. Do we have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you. Right, so we take the amendment first. Those in favour of the amendment... Oh, Katz? Yes, you can.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think actually at that meeting, to some degree, that's what we were trying to get to. So I'm not sure that we meant to say fully that these are the two, but those were things we were thinking around. So I'm happy to support the amendment based on that. It really just needs to be addressed.
Right, thank you. So we've got an amendment on the table. Those people in favour, please show.
That's carried.
Thank you. So we go back to the substantive motion now, which is the amendment. Which is the amendment. Can you read it out, please?
Yeah, so the substantive motion therefore becomes, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Parker, that the panel be requested to review the grant allocation process and report back to Council prior to the next grant application round.
Word for word, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll take that now, please. Those in favour of that, please show.
That's carried.
Thank you. We finished with that? Yes, we have. Okay, right, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it took some getting through, but well done to everybody. So items for circulation for information only. 9 service reports to receive for information. The following service reports: General Manager enclosed. Do we have any questions? Councillor Williamson.
As many members know, I'm a director on the Tavistock bid, and the bid is delighted to see in the General Manager's report, page 3, item 2 at the bottom there, that the hanging baskets for next year are going to be watered by the Town Council. This was an operational issue where the working and partnership arrangements between the bid and the Town Council have to be good, and the General Manager's approach to supporting the bid is very much appreciated. And second, connected to it, the Christmas lights, the bid board would like to thank the General Manager and the Town Council for testing the lights properly and putting them up, and the great show that's been achieved this year. And I think the lights are much better than they have been before. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I just say, under the THI Guildhall public realm, well done to the General Manager for all the work that's gone into to dealing with that. I know it's taken quite a lot of value engineering, that's the right words, isn't it? Yeah. So well done on that, General Manager. Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to refer to the very first item in the General Manager's overview, THI Pannier Market Public Realm, where we read in the first paragraph that agreement needs to be reached by the end of November, and then the last 3 words state still in dispute. I wonder if the General Manager could just shed a little more light on that, please.
Thank you.
Can I just suggest, if you want a detailed response, that's probably something that we would need to pick up in closed session. I mean, we can give you a brief response now, but it may well be something that's more appropriately picked up now, if that's agreeable.
Okay, we'll pick that up in part 2, is that okay? Yeah. Any other questions? Right, thank you very much. Right, we move on then to the Works Department. There's an amendment in the 3rd bullet point. The budget there should read 45,000, not 25. Can I give my thanks for the cleaning and the War Memorial prior to the Remembrance Day commemorations? That's always pleasing to see that's happened. And to say for the trees of lights, there was a public thanks on the square last Friday night to the Town Council, and for the help that was given towards the Christmas trees in the church as well. So I think I did pass those on to you. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, Councillor Ward?
Sorry to be standing up again, Madam Mayor.
No.
This is just for my education. Now, where's it gone? The meeting with the diocesan surveyor to look at antisocial behaviour issues surrounding the Stillhouse Tower on the 7th of November. I'm not aware of what those antisocial behaviour issues were and how the diocesan surveyor fits into that.
Thank you. General Manager, please.
We've had several reports of youths getting into the back garden of the vicarage over the wall and through the windows of the Steelhouse Tower. Part of the discussions in relation to the Steelhouse was what could be done as a temporary measure to prevent people getting access to the rear of the vicarage. And there has been some minor modifications done to the window openings in relation to boarding up, etc., to prevent access through the steel tower.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Mrs Ewing.
Just a comment, really. On the land management section, the pest control contractor, and it's got and linked to Fitsford Cottages. The rats are coming from Fitsford Cottages, they're coming from the canal.
The canal is the problem, adjacent
yeah,
to
please.
Fitsford Cottages.
I live there. We don't have rats like that. But they are, I will admit quite freely, they run around by the canal quite a lot, and actually by the primary school, as you walk past there, when I've been doing my many walks after looking after my lady, one morning I walked along and I thought, I'm sure I just saw something in the dustbin, and peeking out of the dustbin was a rat. I have to say, I'm not afraid of them anymore. I see them all the time around the canal. People don't tend to put any human food on their bird feeders and things like that. You know, residents are quite aware that they are a pest, but please don't put their Fitsford Cottages.
Okay, thank you. Noted.
Yeah, they do.
Right, we'll now move on to the Town Hall and Butchers Hall reports. Noted. Thank you. Any questions, comments? No. Pannier Market report. Thank you. The dates of the what's going on in the pannier markets listed there for members' information. I hope everybody's going to try and do their Christmas shopping in Tavistock and not buy stuff on the internet. I'm certainly trying to do that this year. We need to support the town. Councillor Williamson.
Just an observation. I thought the illustrated reports were very helpful because I was able to work out when things were happening from the posters pasted into the document. So I'd just like to say thank you.
So the snowman helped you, did it, Councillor
Well, I
Williamson?
liked him, yes, very much.
Oh, sorry.
Please.
Right, okay, moving on, thank you. Item 10, finance and other matters. I haven't had to use the gavel yet this time. There will be a time, I think. To receive for information the following: report of the assistant to the town clerk. Thank you for that, Jan. Any questions? Councillor Parker.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Jan, I meant to mention this to you before the meeting, but at the last DELC meeting there was some discussion about planning training, and DELC agreed with some of us around the table that rather than sending individual members off to training courses one at a time, particularly in planning, it would probably be more efficient, more cost effective for DELC to come to us and train the DM committee at one time. And Oakhampton declared an interest in sharing that with us.
Town clerk, thank you.
If it's members' wish, we can certainly arrange that. I mean, I just would observe that we did have West Devon Borough Council provide a planning training session for all members, which was open to all members of council shortly after the elections. So we have actually provided a session for councillors. But if members who attended that feel that it didn't work or that there are other areas they would particularly wish to look at, if they can perhaps feed that back through the DMNL committee, then what we can ask is for DELC to focus on those areas in particular, perhaps.
Councillor Mrs Parker.
Yes, I have to say that the training provided by a certain member of the planning team in West Devon was not good planning training. I have done planning myself, although I'm not currently a planner, and it wouldn't have given anybody a good overview of their responsibilities vis-à-vis local planning.
Okay, something that the DMNL committee can look at next time round, perhaps. Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Mann.
I just wanted to, I'm interested in the town guide and how we could direct people to, if you need them for advertising, is it advertising funded? Is that?
That's what the company does. They source all the advertising. That's not something we have to do, and that's how they make their revenue. So they will approach companies. If there's somebody that you think may be interested, if you could let me know, I can pass that information.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Mrs. Ewings.
I think I've just reread it again. It was about the retendering of the ice cream van, and Sir Francis, the Duke may be in place where the ice cream van sort of went. So I take it you're looking at moving round. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I think thanks for that assistant to the town clerk. Moving on, the county councillor report, which has been tabled. I think we just need to note that. Yeah, thank you. Item C, project updates. Receive any additional oral updates in connection with Tavistock Townscape Heritage Initiative Scheme. Is that the town clerk, please?
Yep. Sorry, I didn't know whether Councillor Ewings was going to ask a question.
But I'll ask it in a minute.
Okay. In relation to the THI, we recently had a meeting with our Heritage Lottery Fund monitor. I think it's fair to say that they are very comfortable with the way in which the scheme has progressed. The feedback has been positive and good. We'll come on to some of the flexibility they've shown later on the agenda, but I think we are now at the stage where what we can say is that we are looking to conduct both an accountancy review and an audit review in the early part of the new year. But certainly the early indications are that the scheme has worked well, and I just would like to take this opportunity to thank all those members, partners and colleagues who have actually helped to make this possible over a 5-year delivery journey. I know it's not an end yet because we get to the end in June, but also the journey to even get to the stage of that in terms of developing it, and those who were involved before my time, because this is something which has been worked on and an aspiration really since I think 2007-8. I'd like to hope that everyone feels it's been worthwhile. Certainly I think National Lottery Heritage Fund do, and as someone who's participated in it, I think the work that it's done is incredibly welcome. And even just looking today, standing outside 81 West Street and comparing it to the condition that it was in only a matter of 10 weeks ago, it is very refreshing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think that's been a remarkable progress. Councillor Mrs. Ewing, Councillor Smith and I were here back in the early days, and it took some getting to where we are today. It took an awful lot to achieve that, so well done to everybody involved. Right, item 2, the Guildhall Gateway Centre project. An update, please.
I think this is a very short one, but unfortunately this isn't quite such good news. We had been anticipating that we would be able to secure a grant in the order of £20,000 or £18,000 from Viridor for one of the pieces, or one of the components, if you like, in relation to the Guildhall Gateway Centre project. We had a site inspection which took place yesterday, and unfortunately we have been advised that what we had and what we believed was eligible is in fact not eligible. We will look at other options, and we will see whether or not it's possible to put in another application for an element which might be eligible, but clearly that is a disappointment at this stage, and it's something whereby we will try and seek alternative funding without recourse to council resources if we possibly can.
Thank you. Right, item D, to receive any update from or questions to council representatives serving on other outside bodies in connection with the work of those bodies. Councillor Mrs. Ewing.
I'd just like to report about Tavistock Community Football Club. We've been having quite a few problems down there with vandalism, people, antisocial behaviour. It has been reported to the police. I'm afraid it's usually Councillor Lewis that finds it, because he's down there when the sparrows get up, especially in the summer. But it has been a problem, and there is one that we are trying to address, and working with the police as well, because of what we think some of the antisocial behaviour is.
Thank you. We did mention that I mentioned it at the Tavistock Matters meeting recently.
Yeah. May I also just say, on the noted bit, I think I am the councillor that has not sent in a report, because I only turned my computer on yesterday for the first time since the 19th of the Budget and Policy, when I had no voice whatsoever and didn't have for the following 9 days. The main thing that I think the council needs to know is the precept is likely to go up by £5. They're not using the percentages because 1.99%, which is all the borough and district authorities are allowed to put their precept up by, it has dropped from 2.99 to 1.99. That gives less than £5 in West Devon. So West Devon have gone with the £5 amount as opposed to 5 or 1.99. So we're going for the fiver. The other thing that is really important and relates actually to what Councillor Mr Parker was talking about at the beginning of the meeting with regard to the neighbourhood plans. West Devon Borough Council are looking now very seriously at implementing a SIL system. There have been meetings held, and it is something that is going forward. If we don't have a neighbourhood plan in place, that means we get 10% less of the pot. So instead of receiving 25% of that SIL amount for that property, we will only receive 15% if we don't have a neighbourhood plan. Now, on a big development, that is a lot of money that we could be losing. And I think, you know, I totally agree with Councillor Mr Parker that we need to get this neighbourhood plan going. Most of you know around here, I've been banging on about it for years and years, but it really needs to happen. Tavistock has got to start taking responsibility, and it won't be totally led by this council, but working with Mr Parker before he became councillor here, there was already a group that was set up. They were doing a lot of work. We need to get some of those other groups involved again, and we need to go ahead with this. Otherwise, this town council is going to lose a lot of money, and I don't think that's fair to our residents that we should lose parts of the pot. So those are the two main issues from West Devon at the moment that will affect Tavistock Town Council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Young. Can I ask you a question, please? How many parishes, towns within West Devon have got a neighbourhood plan?
Beer Alston's, I think, has been agreed. I'm looking at Councillor Parker here. Hatherley's is nearly that. No, Hatherley have got one. No, they haven't.
Not quite.
Not quite. North Taunton are a not quite.
Straightforward answer is one. One has a made neighbourhood plan, and I believe when I last had my hands on the portfolio, 11 others were in the process. Lamerton is in abeyance, and Butler Monacorum is in abeyance, but other than that, all the others are moving forward.
Yeah, Oakhampton's moving forward at quite a pace as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williamson, please.
Just to report that I attended the Dartmoor National Park Authorities Forum, a consultative group. The main topic discussed was the Glover report, which is to do with the future evolution of the national parks, and of course it's a bit parked because we're in an election process, and when we come out the other side things will happen with Glover, maybe.
Thank you. Any other updates? Councillor Fay, please.
So I obtained 2 weeks ago, I attended the museum half-yearly meeting. Their main concerns were the fabric of the building and the sort of lack of funding. And I was obviously not aware of what funding is available, so I had to withdraw from that point. But I did witness, and I was going to discuss with Wayne about the condition of 2 windows that they were showing concern with.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports? Councillor Mrs Parker, please.
I did circulate a brief summary, but at the Superlinks meeting, various matters were discussed, but mostly it was about the county and the West Devon Borough describing their challenges with their budgets. One thing in particular came up, because I raised it, was the fact that West Devon Borough make a considerable income from the rates, business rates specifically, and that they've had a rural services delivery grant as well. And from that, they described it as a windfall, and they will be funding two economic project officers. And we should make sure that if we want any work delivered by these economic development project officers, that we put our names on the list.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mrs Ewing.
Can I just counter some of that, please? With the business rates, West Devon actually don't get that great share of the pot, and we're actually in a negative balance with it. And the government, for the last 2 years, have said they will pay it. So that, I think, amount is £298,000 that the government give to West Devon because we don't actually meet taking in the amount of rates that we should for our area. And the 400,000 from the Rural Services Network was applied for by many councils that fit in with the rural services because of, you know, the cost of delivering services, like, you know, our bin men go right out to the Warren Inn for West Devon. That money is also not a guarantee. We don't even know if we're going to definitely get it for next year. So those funding pots. So, for example, that 298,000, because there is no government actual in writing that they're going to pay it again for us, has been put into the budget. So it then becomes part of the budget that we have to save in costs. So the council fundamentally, on the grand scheme of things, is in negative and is having to look for more funding. The money that is received by 1% of council tax in West Devon is £47,000, which is not a great deal of money when you would think, you know, cities and what have you, 1% up there probably raises millions. But down here is 47,000. But I have to say, when I first became a West Devon councillor in 2003, it was only 19,000, so we built a lot of houses. So, yeah, but just those two big pots of money, neither of them are guaranteed, and the council has to bear that in mind when we're doing the budget setting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Can I just say, Mandy, that was how your leader described it, not how I described it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Okay, we now move on to item 11, which is to receive such communications or reports as may be submitted by the Town Mayor. I don't think I've got any for that, but item 12, urgent matters brought forward at the discretion of the Town Mayor. I understand that you've all had invitations to come to the Mayor's Christmas party. Can we have your replies, please?
Yes.
I'm working very hard on a quiz. No, it's all up here, Mandy. Of course, it's going to be all Tavistock.
Oh God, you go back years.
Well, at least to 1720, if not before that. Yeah. Right. We now move on to exclusion of press and public. Item 13, Public Body Submission to Meetings Act 1960. Can I move to part 2?
Move.